Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or a survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is my dear friend, Kathy Sanderson. We're going to be talking about our inner child and why our inner child tends to believe that everything is our fault, and how we can tell her and get her to understand that it's not our fault. So, Kathy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I love talking with you. We've done several things together, and it's always a real treat to be able to get you on the call.
Yes, it's great fun, isn't it?
It is. It is. So, Kathy, I always have people start with telling us a little bit about themselves. So tell us, briefly about your story.
So, I'm just an ordinary girl. So I thought that everything that had happened to me was normal, and that I wasn't a very nice person. There was something inherently wrong with me. So I developed this mask, and nothing fazed me. I didn't let anybody hurt me. I even managed to switch off being ticklish because I didn't like that lack of control. So I just went through life, and my life was a bit like a soap opera. You had some good bits, but the majority of it wasn't really that good. So I would self-medicate with alcohol or with food, and it was only when I've lost quite a few babies, and it was only when I just one day had this sort of like big strop, and someone was offering free healing. So I just put, right, I'm type 1 diabetic, I've lost 3 babies this year, and of course they wanted to work with me. And it was through that, and that was only 5 years ago, that I discovered that I could heal. But I still never realized that I had inner child trauma, because nothing bad ever happened to me. I knew that bad things happened to my mum and all of that stuff, but nothing bad ever happened to me. No social worker would ever take me away. And when I actually realized that all of the things I had experienced were those tiny little tea traumas that stack up like a dripping tap,
right?
It was like a big, huge 10-ton weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I finally knew that I wasn't bad, that there was nothing wrong with me. It's taken me a while to dig through layers to get through that, but that initial relief to know that actually there's nothing wrong with me was a huge, big aha moment.
I can imagine.
So through that, I was able to see that a lot of people have this, and in a way, it's harder for the person to understand that it's their childhood that's affecting them now, rather than the fact that they're just no good. No, they're rubbish, they're stupid, they can't get anything right. Because when you're abused physically, you have those scars. You have, you know what happened to you. And if you were sexually abused, you know that you have a reason to feel how you're feeling.
Exactly.
But if you only have the sarcasm, the passive aggressiveness, the being ignored at certain times, of not having your needs met, of feeling abandoned, even though you're in the same room with people and they're talking to you. If you've only got those kind of feelings, then what reason do you have to be upset?
Yeah, I could see where you're coming from. Having these little jabs at you, you don't realize that they add up. They it's like a snowball.
It's like it's chipping away at your soul, because if you're hit, it hurts, but then it heals. Whereas if it's actually emotional, it digs away, it chips away at you, and it just means that you're unable to feel whole again.
Right. And those little T's, you just don't realize that that's what's happening. It'd be different if somebody's flat out saying you're stupid, you're no good, you're worthless. But just those little T jabs here and there, you don't realize that you're being emotionally abused.
No, and this is the hard thing, but your parents don't realize that they are emotionally abusing you either.
Exactly.
Because more often than not, they are giving you a much better life than they had. And the problem is that when you try and talk to your parents about how you felt as a child, they can't even cotton on to the idea of how you feel, because compared to what they went through, to them, it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So my mum gave me everything that she wasn't able to have, except for that emotional connection. That feeling that, because she didn't feel like she mattered, she passed that on to me. She was unable to know how to love two children together, to how to split that love, because her mum never showed her. Her mum always played her and her sister off against each other. So my mum tried to give me everything that she hadn't had materialistically.
Mm-hmm.
But because she'd never experienced what she wanted to give me emotionally, although it was so much better than what she experienced, it still didn't meet my healthy narcissistic needs of being heard, being loved unconditionally, feeling like I matter. So when children talk to their parents or they're talking to other people, they so often get told, well, you didn't have it so bad. Get over it. The past is the past. All of those types of things. And it's a really hard thing to deal with when it is those little T's, because they're not those big T's, are they? So what reason do you have to keep going on about it? Oh my God, will you just get over it?
Yeah,
I've
right.
heard that so many times.
Yeah, that happened years ago. Why are you bringing that up now?
Exactly. Your mom and dad did the best. Look what you had. I didn't have that. My children didn't have that. I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm just really selfish then and spiteful. Yeah, you're right. Why do I feel like I want to kill myself? Because you've just told me that what I'm going through isn't bad. So why do I want to kill myself? Oh my God, I'm such a horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes deep, deep down.
Right. So as we become adults, our inner child is still wounded and she's still hurting and she's still fearful. How do we? I'm sorry?
Nothing has changed for her.
Exactly. She is still living as the victim, as the wounded person. And she tends to act out.
Very much so.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know you specialize in dealing with our inner child. So, what does that mean when our inner child acts out?
So you may have grew up with a parent sulking, or our listeners may have noticed that their parents would just like give them the silent treatment, stamp and have a tantrum in the kitchen, throw their bottom lip up, not speak to them because they said something that upset them. Well, that's because they're inner child, as a child, they're emotionally stunted. They never learned how to deal with confrontation. They never learned how to deal with something going wrong and being able to talk about it and working together to make it acceptable for both people. So as a child, my dad was like, if you tried to say anything, it was shush, or it was that look. And that was it. If you didn't feel it was fair, that's okay, because, that's the way it is, my way or the highway type of thing. So I grew up very stunted of not feeling heard. So I would do the same things. I would sulk if my husband upset me. I would put my lip out. I would have a little paddy, a little tantrum, stomp my feet, storm off, slam doors, go and hide so he'd have to find me. All of these things, because I was never given that opportunity to say, well, hang on, why do you think this is unfair? How can we look at it differently so that we're meeting both of our needs and you feel heard and you feel your needs are validated? That never happened. But that's what needs to happen to your children so that they grow up feeling that their feelings and their needs matter.
So how do we start healing that little girl? How do we get through to her that her past and her pain is not her fault?
The first thing that you need to do is to reconnect with your little girl, your inner child. And I have an amazing 3-part video on YouTube, which I'll give you the links to. And that enables you to sit down, it's a guided meditation, and reconnect with your little one. And I would always say, do this when you're not going to be disturbed, when you've got an hour or so spare, because it's going to bring up some stuff. And if you do this meditation and you do not feel tears or cry, then you haven't done it right. You need to reconnect. You need to feel. You need to allow yourself to feel all of that hurt and pain that little one felt, so that when you say sorry to them, you feel that release. You feel that connection, and you will cry because you'll see that little child being so abandoned because nobody's there for them. And then you will see how you connect, and you reconnect with them, and you show them that actually not everybody is going to abandon you, because I'm here and I'm going to give you whatever it is that you need. I'm going to reparent you, as John Bradshaw promotes. I'm going to reparent you. I'm going to be that person who cheers you up when you're sad. I'm going to be the person who comforts you, shows you that you matter and that you are lovable no matter what you do, what you say, what you look like. I'm going to keep you safe. And building up that relationship, which is what I enable people to do when they join my monthly membership, because we do it every single day. We just do a little mini guided meditation. So it's like having an inner child session every day. But what it does is it means that you build up that inner child connection, that relationship. So you give your little one what they desperately needed. because how would you want to go? It's time is not this straight line. There isn't the past, there isn't now, there isn't the future. It's all happening at the same time. So by going back and giving your little one what they need every single day, then you're going to meet the needs that you have. But as a grown-up, your needs are so complex compared to your inner child's needs. So if you meet your inner child's needs in the morning, that will meet your very, very complex needs easily. And you will have a much easier, better day than if you don't do this, because your needs would have already been met.
Does this help to keep our inner child from trying to take over and run our lives? Because when I know that when my inner child takes over, my life goes to shit.
Yeah. Well,
she doesn't know how to adult very well.
And she uses her coping strategies, which are quite okay for a child.
Right.
But not for an adult.
Right.
But what she's doing is she's trying to keep you safe in the only way she knows how. And she's doing all of those coping strategies that don't serve you now, but she's bringing them because that's all that she knows. So if your inner child is having her needs met every single day, or however often you choose to do it, but I would say do it every single day, because you're developing that constant. Then you're not suddenly going in like parents do and love bombing the children and then ignoring them for a month or so until you get back to it. Do it every single day, so you build that love and that trust, and they know that they have somebody there for them, just for them, which they've never had before. And then they've got no reason to act out. They don't feel abandoned. They don't feel that they need to create a dramatic situation to bring people to them, because you are teaching your little one that they're lovable just the way they are. You're teaching them that they deserve love and that they get love no matter what, because you show up every single day and you give them that love.
Why is it so important to really do this with our inner child? I mean, I'm sure there's probably some listeners going, come on, really, inner child? You know, why? We all have one, but why is it so important to make sure her needs are met every day?
I would say if there is something going wrong in your life, or your life isn't going the way it is, it's because of the negative beliefs about you or people or the world in general that you developed as a child. And this inner child work is the quickest way to break down those negative limiting beliefs.
That makes sense.
Everything in your reality is there because you have brought it to you. Everybody in the world is a fantastic manifester, because if they weren't, then their world would be empty. So everything in their life is brought to them because it's what they truly believe they deserve, not what they're writing in their manifesting journal, not what they're chanting in their affirmations, because that's you now. Your inner child, every time you're there going saying, yes, I am enough, I deserve everything, I am accepted wherever I go, your inner child can be screaming, no, I am not, no
Right.
one loves me. And it might go well for a few months, a year or so, but something's going to come up, and the inner child is just going to have enough and it can't take anymore. And that's when everything comes crashing down.
And I think we've all been there at least once.
And it's about knowing those signs and doing something about it, rather than going and building it all up and then it has to happen again.
It's got me thinking. This has been fantastic. I'm actually just thinking, because when my inner child acts up, I tend to eat horribly.
Yeah.
And lately I've been eating not so great, or making poor choices in my diet. And it's got me thinking, okay, what is she needing? So it's telling me I've got some work to do today.
I'll tell you something that happened to me yesterday. So I'm currently doing the Arbonne 30 Days to Healthy because it's the way that I reset my gut. Because as a child, if you have all these negative childhood experiences, the first thing that you're going to have problems with is your stomach. It's just the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who's had negative childhood experiences will have trouble with their gut in some way, shape, or form. So I'm vegan and have a love of butter, but you couldn't get a good vegan butter because I'm in the UK. So this year, Flora brought out this vegan butter. And I don't understand why, just self-sabotage normally, I ordered this butter. And I had some on a rice cake, so it wasn't that bad. And ate it. And then the next day, yesterday, I was like, had some, and I'm like, why are you doing this? What's going through your head that you are doing this and sabotaging something that's working so well and that you're sticking to? No problem. Why are you having this? And I'd just done some really deep work. And I stood there and I'm like, why are you doing this for butter? Well, butter makes me feel happy. How can butter make you feel happy? Then I'm reminded of every Friday we would have chips from the chip shop, fish that Mum would cook, and crusty bread and butter because she'd go shopping on a Friday. So fresh crusty bread and proper butter. And I'm like, well, why did that make you happy? And it was a learned behaviour because it made my mum happy. My mum was really happy that she got her crusty bread and butter. And everybody loved it, and it was gone like in 2 days. So I realised that actually butter doesn't make me happy. Butter was me made my mum happy. And I needed to make my mum happy so that I got nice attention. So I was able to find that connection to butter. So butter doesn't make me happy. It made my mum happy, which meant that I was happy because then she was nice to me. So now I don't have that connection with butter, and I can look at it and I'm like, well, I'm not going to eat
you. That's really interesting how that works.
But we'd never be told that connection. We'd be told like going to Slimming World or another weight loss thing, just sure. Don't have it. We don't look at the reasons why we want it.
Right. And just don't have it is not so easy to do, especially when the inner child's like screaming, I want it. Well, Kathy, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us and talking with us about our inner child and how we can get her to realize that, she's okay, she's safe, she's enough, she's beautiful just the way she is.
Powerful stuff. When you can do that and your inner child feels that way, everything just shifts.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
And listeners, thank you for joining us. We will have the link to Kathy's meditation down in the show notes. So make sure if you're listening on one of our partner stations, you go to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Kathy's show, and then it will be down in the notes. And thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.